palace bathed in the rays of the summer sun, a grandiose scandal broke out due to a serious misunderstanding. The lady of this palace was painfully struck in her heart by the unexpected news about the forced wedding, because it was not part of her plans at all. The initiator of the conversation, in turn, was extremely enraged by her resistance and could barely contain himself, eloquently emphasizing the arguments with an angry look. His explanations were based on agreements that had long been documented, of course, on political grounds. In response to his rhetorical question, "Where can one find a better partner?" the ungrateful beauty vaguely lowered the gaze of her aquamarine eyes. She defended herself with a counter-question: how can such an important, fatal personal issue be resolved by just a stroke of a pen? The young man bent his line, asking why Erzeta was so carefully avoiding the marriage he had planned for her own good. A heavy, salty drop rolled out of the ocean of the girl's eyes, whose fate was decided just now. From that moment on, she hated him. He became a stranger to her. Erzeta slammed her fist on the table in despair. Why, of all people, should it be Righieri Levanto? Stacks of books and scrolls lay around her. At the reaction of her hireling, Farmet, as if she were hers again, Erzeta angrily exclaimed that she could not marry Righieri. She remembered how rudely her father ended the conversation, turning his back to her and looking out the window. He would not change his decision. This marriage is needed only to bring the families together, not for her happiness. Erzeta replied to the maid's request to give the boy a chance by agreeing to a date. A marriage for the sake of establishing ties with the Levanto family. An elegant and boring ceremony in a Christian temple arose in the imagination. The gossip of the common people in the August barley fields of both lands. Is it true that this marriage can bring harmony and peace? And the expected prediction that this venture will not last long and is as fragile as glass. Not everything in the world is subject to this marriage contract. In such situations, you have to rely only on your own strength, the mystical power of the spirit that can bring down fire from the sky, and the strength of a simple knight's sword, capable of resisting the delusions of the learned world, which is hostile to them. That's why Erzeta took so long to learn magic. She turned from her books and, looking into Pharma's eyes, asked again, "Does he understand her now? A girl can use fairy magic." The pomegranate-haired maid looked at her friend with sadness and understanding. But she tried once again to offer to give the unexpected bridegroom a chance to prove himself. What caused the ninth wave of aggressive reaction? Nothing. The charming Erzeta was considered the pride of all Sola. She was famous for her beautiful appearance and high intelligence, but she hated Marquis Levanto with all her heart. With a murderous look, she thought about what the hated fate of a high-born bride was pushing her to. For a long time, Erzeta conducted secret research in the archives of the family library. She often sat over the Talmud until late at night. She tried to explain the events that occurred before the current era of the church, namely 300 years ago, on the basis of one hypothesis. Thus, she confirmed the existence of magic and fairies. She published her own research under the pseudonym Vincenzo Costazegno. Work was underestimated by society, and one of the main critics of this development was a narcissistic, charming, blonde, handsome man, the erudite Marquis Righieri Levanto. He criticized Erzeta's work at the academic council. Righieri understood the scientific approach of the hitherto unknown author Vincenzo Costazegno in a very simplified manner, and he concluded that this work is delusional at the level of popular science fiction, not worthy of any attention from the serious scientific community of modern scientists. He then publicly humiliated her work. Of course, Farmet denied that scientists cannot believe in the existence of magical phenomena, if even the common people deny all this. A faithful friend agreed that this could not help but upset the author, whose work was slandered, not so much by criticism, but by rejection, accusations of superstition in fairy tales. The girl did not know how to comfort her mistress, but Erzeta came up with it herself. What can be done, and begged her friend for help. Her idea was to have Farmet go on a blind date for her. She looked at the girl pleadingly and with hope. Nothing bad will happen, will it? Go on a date instead of a bride whose marriage is defining for the whole country? Out of surprise, the girl burst out laughing. "Young lady is full of emotions, you need to calm down a little." But Erzeta assured that everything was fine. At the same time, she continued to hold Farmi by the wrist and look with a hypnotizing gaze. "And you won't say that? Then why is she saying such unworldly things now? Does she just need a reason to fire her maid for disobedience?" Erzeta's eyes filled with tears and a desperate plea. "It's not like that. Farm is her best friend." She took her hand higher and not so firmly. Instead, the maid had a fear of death. Such an act could really be punished according to the merciless medieval canons. Farm nailed her friend with sharp words. They don't even look alike. Even the hair color is radically different. The gentle tone of the face of the recognized beauty, Sola emphasized with a noble pallor blue-black braids, which fell almost to the knees in luxurious curls. Pensive eyes reminded of the heavenly purity of angels. Farmette imagined how she would lie to the Marquis. She tried to act as if she introduced herself to him as Erzetta. He will immediately expose her. The excited young lady, still trying to convince, immediately interrupted her. What made Farmette assume that she would be bitten immediately? She took her friend by the hand and invited her to follow her. She led me to the mirror and asked, "Isn't she charming?" Rumors always exaggerate everything. Therefore, you can be sure that no one will understand anything. Radiant Erzetta added that she had come up with something. She moved the dresses in the closet. She enthusiastically said that if they are tinted with cosmetics, even their own father will not be able to distinguish them. If something does not go according to plan, she will take all the responsibility on herself. Hearing that Farme began to pray out of fear, Erzetta apologized if she said something rude. Her request is sincere. She would never set up a girlfriend. Meanwhile, the hired girl hesitated. Her mistress promised to take all the responsibility on herself. Maybe you should trust her? She looked at the beauty who was peering out the window. What if the Duke finds out? Well, then she will definitely be fired and driven away, concluded Farm. The maid was nervous. She thought that she could not refuse to help. Sunny bunnies were jumping around the Duke's daughter in the room. The girls have been together for 5 years. She weighed all the advantages. Excellent housing, full-time employment, high salary, kindness, honesty, the best hostess, beauty. Her conscience will torment her. Called Erzetta, who was still thoughtfully peering out the window, bathed in the gentle rays of the sun, forcing her to look around. Farmette firmly stated her considered decision. She agrees to go on a date with a virgin. Somewhere in the fortress of Levanto Fiamolo, late at night, the question rang out, "Is Righieri still there?" All buildings were generously flooded by the full moon. "Yes, Your Highness," answered the sentry dressed in armor politely. "It is still locked there behind 7 locks." His Highness corrected something and added, annoyed, "That one and the other. They did not succeed." "I'm sorry." The guard grunted in response. A slender, long-haired blonde man of respectable age demanded that Righieri leave immediately. Because this marriage is not negotiable, but he will inherit the title of Duke. In response, there was an irrevocable objection that it would not be possible to persuade the boy. He would not take a step until his father gave up on this idea. Is it so difficult to get married and take over the management of the palace? The door was locked from the inside with 5 padlocks hanging on chains of various calibers. Next, a threat popped out of the boy's red mouth that he would kill himself if the father did not come to his senses and continue persuasion. Herzog was hurt by these cruel words. No father would want to hear something like that. In the cocktail of emotions, anger took over. He immediately ordered a good club to be served to teach the insolent bastard with it. For a few minutes there was a pounding at the door until my head hurt. No locks helped. A large hole was broken 20 centimeters above them during this time. The guy was sitting on his wide bed in shock. He didn't think that the door would just be broken down. My home is also my fortress. The prisoner of his own free will is a young man under 25 years old, with sapphire, blue eyes, light straw-colored hair, and an athletic build. Someone apologetically put his hand through the hole. In it was an envelope sealed with a wax seal. This is a message from the Duke, and he is persistent. The young blonde in an unbuttoned white shirt thought glumly. He came up, took the envelope, and opened it, crunching with wax. The letter said that in 2 weeks there would be a friendly visit of their family to the Solly family. After the event, there will be an introduction to the lady, so you should prepare. The broad-shouldered, slender, handsome man beamed. Since his father is so eager for this wedding, he will seize the initiative. And folded the letter with one hand. The Duke's son began to call out to someone who could hear him from outside the door, then ordered Angelo to be called immediately. From the crack in the door came a familiar voice, who inquired whether it was really His Highness who had called him. The owner was glad that Angelo had come and invited him to enter the rooms. He sat comfortably in the chair, crossed the fingers of his elegant hands in front of him. But Angelo could not enter. The door was still locked with a cluster of locks and chains. The blond young man looked confusedly through the hole and asked to open it. The Duke's son got up, went to the door and rattled for a few minutes. dismantling the structure that was supposed to protect his chastity. When the door was finally opened, the Marquis sat down comfortably in a chair richly decorated with gold leaf, with his slender long legs crossed one over the other. Then he cleared his throat and, with ambiguity, emphasized by the glow of the full moon night, announced that he had an important task for the servant. The Marquis had well-developed muscles, and he flaunted them at every opportunity, deliberately wearing thin silk shirts with laces in the front. A fair-haired boy about the same age as the Marquis stood submissively with the sullen expression of a donkey. His haircut was too long, so it completely hid the color of his eyes. A rough, worn linen shirt of an inexplicable color, made of the cheapest gray yarn, hung on his broad shoulders like a rag. The small incision did not hide the muscles of the torso. Once again, carefully looking at Angelo, like a slave in a slave market, the young man doubted the realism of his cunning plan. However, there are no other options. He ordered to listen to him carefully and said that he would send the boy in 2 weeks to a friendly event with the Soliot family. His name will be listed at this event. Angelo imagined himself in his lekkas among the servants, carriages. Even against the background of the servants, he looked pitiful. Next on the schedule is a meeting with Lady Solly. On behalf of him, the Duke's son, how will it be, in a sunlit gazebo? For tea, some kind of phantasmagoria. Don't be afraid? For a good reward? A bunch of questions swarmed at this moment in the head of the stunned Angelo. Only one 2-letter word made its way through this swarm of question marks. What? His master laughed. Is that the whole answer? Maybe the statement of the problem is unclear. Reformulate? Is there simply no desire? Does he not know other words? No, he understood, Mr. The conversation must remain strictly confidential. Under no circumstances should the Duke find out, otherwise both will be punished. The Marquis liked his plan. He will not tolerate being a pawn in someone else's game. When the task is completed, Angelo will get everything he wants. But if the guy wants to have the right to refuse? It was this desire that escaped his lips. The Duke's son burst out laughing. Of course he does. Everyone has the right to do only what does not contradict the moral principles of the duchy. Does he think that he will be forced? At that moment, the Marquis suddenly jumped up from his chair, leaning on its massive legs. The noble tone of the skin reflected the moonlight. He put his hand on the unfortunate Angelo's shoulder, leaned close to his ear, and, glancing at his neck with a blue eye, slyly reminded him that the Duke's eldest son was very spiteful. Angelo understood everything for sure. Clenching his fist angrily and resolutely, he showed that he would carry out his master's commission. He looked contentedly at the humble servant with a warm look. Marquis was delighted with himself. It was shining, while everything is going as planned. He said it was great, and he no longer looked like the person who had threatened to commit suicide a few minutes ago. Angelo asked if the Duke's son could give him the glasses. Now you could see that he had light blue eyes. The shade of the hair was light but ashen, not straw like his master's. And he expressed his fear that this whole enterprise could bring trouble to His Highness. He is so laconic and restrained in his statements. He was all associated with oppression. Just look at him, the Duke's son thought evilly. Does he want to take a chance? And again, meaningfully, he placed the palm of his right hand on the right shoulder of the submissive Angelo. 2 weeks later, wrapped in red, precious clothes and almost in a hijab to hide the color of her hair, the girl waits nervously in the gazebo. Desserts and tea are on the table. She stared at the cake. And why is he still not there? It would be better if he didn't come, she reasoned, scrolling through the cup. Her gloomy green eyes were in harmony with Erzata's favorite pendant. The sun burned her cleavage. Suddenly, from her manipulations with the cup, a dessert spoon fell to the bottom. She cried out. This is not good, thought the irritated girl. A shadow came over her worried face. Looking at the palace through his round glasses, the bewildered boy said in confusion, How majestic it is! The young man was wearing a beret with a large blue sapphire and an ostrich feather. The view is strange. His eye was drawn to the gilded white arches in the conifer garden, decorated with artistic sculptures of angels, rainbows that bathed in fountains. People live, it seems to him here. No one accompanied. He headed for the palace. The facade was quite harmonious despite the fact that obviously it was built in different eras. Classicism, Baroque. It was hot in this outfit with foxes and a beret. After passing the bridges that spanned the river and carpets of colorful landscape design, he saw his goal, a white gazebo for dating. Obviously, he was expected. A rainbow slipped through the filigree forging. Next came a large greenhouse for exotic plants, and in the gazebo sat a man in red. The beautiful green-eyed girl raised her spoon and noticed a figure approaching her. Her garnet-colored braids peeked out from under the trader's headdress. Even a veil will not hide it. Is this the Duke's son? Ah, here. It was not clear whether she called him to find his way or simply stated the fact that this fox had come, rather the second. The girl's nerves gave way and she almost knocked over the cake and dessert and crawled under the table with a scream. The guy just froze in place, not knowing how to react. Dummy Rieri asked uncertainly if she was all right. Probacala said yes. Standing on her knees and staring blankly at the toes of men's shoes, her whole body trembled. Finally, the young lady got out, throwing a veil over her face. In her hand was a spoon. Would a real lady crawl under the table for it? She held onto the table so as not to fall to her knees again. Her legs were bending. The young lady looked so confused, awkward, and unhappy at that moment. In her mind, she begged Erzette to forgive her for being so embarrassed at the very first meeting. Oh, Farm, what did she get into? No white veil could hide the deep blackness. Now there is no way back. The guy said no more decisively that he was sorry for being rude. If only she knew how many more rudeness and manipulations would come from him, she would have run away from the world, losing her slippers. But he asks permission to keep her company. Well, what a scumbag. Even through his huge glasses, which glinted in the sun, making him even duller, it was clear that his vision was also dulled. Is this man really Righieri Levanto? She looked at the stooped, indecisive figure of a fair-haired youth who was touching his solar plexus with his right hand. Like bad acting. Farm in an overly pompous red dress walked down the red carpet of the corridor. The sun's rays slipped through her white veil and rested on the white balusters. Today the torture is over. Having opened the right white door, she entered her mistress's room and informed Erzetta that she had already returned. How did you survive this sunny day in these heavy clothes? Erzetta, beaming with joy, jumped down from the step of her bed, pushing the translucent cloths out of the way. She seemed to be resting, for she was in her underwear, slender and luxurious like a lily. Everyone has that girlfriend who slips in some glasses and goes to bed herself, right? The friend asked the exhausted maid how the meeting with the Duke's son went. Farm took off her headdress, boringly dragging on that it was cute, and mentally the soul screamed that it was terrible. But this is a fierce cringe. Even telling a friend is embarrassing. How could this even happen to her? A few hours before that, Farmette was sitting in the gazebo across from her boyfriend. Stiffness was felt in their poses. Outwardly, everything is so dignified, noble. It was immediately clear that the after-party does not shine. Farma looked at this bespectacled man, who sat as if buried, mentally begging him to at least say something. It's as if brake fluid was poured instead of tea. She didn't know where to start the conversation. They sipped tea in silence, and the shrewd maid wondered without reason if the Marquis was really sitting in front of her. What is he thinking about? It's really some kind of misfortune. It's not for nothing that the lady is struggling with it, because although he is famous for his intelligence, he looks somehow inharmonious, clumsy with unkempt hair, glasses, and these clothes. It was as if his mother was dressing him up for a date. At the young man, who did not look like an aristocrat at all, Farm looked angrily. Where did he take so much audacity to appear on a date with her mistress in such a form? Well, Moose, isn't it? The maid's eyes filled with rage and disgust. Are neighbors really always like this? So that he sours. When will he go away, preferably to the other end of the continent? What are the rules of etiquette? It's stuck. She regretted advising Erzetta to give him a chance. The girl can no longer look at this aunt. When she summed up her conclusions by saying that she didn't like him at all, he suddenly praised the taste of the tea. She sipped that tea. How tasty is it? Is that sarcasm? He is bitter, astringent. He persisted for 30 minutes, exactly as long as one thought of this Marquis ripens. An evil grimace crossed her face. Maybe he's mocking. Is this sarcasm? Found something to complain about, to shame them for their hospitality? What kind of collisions are these? The couple sat at the table without even tasting a single dessert. It is clear that the sweet conversation was successful. Both steamed like that tea. The girl wanted him to end the conversation with tea. Suddenly, with the words that it was time for him to go, he lied. Righieri began to turn away, clutching his beret. He finally took it off. What a relief. Now you can eat dessert without fear of nausea. This made the boy even more angry with his interlocutor, so to speak. Farm even went astray. Her life did not prepare her for such heartbreaking twists in the plot. His outfit was even more old-fashioned than hers, but at least without this flimsy beret, nothing is the same. But still like a hunched dog. She burned him with a look. Parabok definitely touched her by saying that it was an honor for him to meet her. He continued to hold that headdress close to his heart. Paddles covered the whole face. Yeah, Farm's mouth fell open. Is this what he calls an acquaintance? Seriously? But how can you treat Miss Urzetta like that? But in the pub, you can learn more about each other. What was this? According to generally accepted norms of etiquette, as a sign of respect for a noble woman, a man should ask to kiss her hand from the backside, carefully supporting her fingers from below. The maid remembered an illustration of an article on this topic from an encyclopedia of etiquette that she had been studying in preparation for this unfortunate day. And why did she do all this? Waste her time? He was lucky that Farm was here instead of Urzetta. Her ladyship would definitely not forgive such an insolent attitude towards her person. Farewell. Everything is clear with him. At last it was possible to throw off the conspiracy suit. Oh, and I pretended, and without it, my head hurt. The carnival was not how the poor girl tormented by this shame had imagined. Blue-eyed Urzetta listened to all the details of the event in which she had drawn her self-sacrificing hireling. It seems that he did not understand anything. I wonder why Farmy is so upset. Without a headdress, the maid looked her age. The girl promised to express her assumptions about this strange person as soon as she changed into her clothes. Urzetta helped her maid to unlace the corset, and she was covered up. Despite his status, he behaved disrespectfully. The girl continued, holding her heavier braids with her hand. An emotion of disgust crossed the lady's face at these words of Farmet. This is not how she imagined the Duke's eldest son. That he is impudent, she already knows, but that he is ignorant? Girls in underwear discussed the guy. His unkempt appearance is a separate song. How dare Rihieri come to the meeting in this? If it weren't for his clothes, she wouldn't have believed that he was a marquis. Urzetta loosened a tight bundle of the girl's reddish hair. You can't be bothered by her words. He's obviously not interested in marrying Lady Saliot either. Otherwise, why did he behave like that? The charming good lady thanked the girl for her faithful service. It looks like everything is going according to their plan so far. They were not revealed. And it's even good that the Marquise turned out to be such a telepnem. Placing her hands on her friend's shoulders, Urzetta hugged her, praised her, and let the maid rest, promising to call someone else in case of need. Farm quickly changed into her modest but neat good dress, grabbed her basket, and ran to her apartment. She couldn't wait to see how her closest person was. Running in, she informed Ranjo that her sister had returned. She was so adorable in her brown striped dress with blue piping and lace, much better than morning clothes. A dark-haired, well-groomed boy of 7 in modest clothes, with the same green eyes as Pharma's, looked away from the book in surprise. He did not expect that his sister would return so soon. The friendly boy sat with his feet on a brown sofa in the northern style. The room was spacious, and except for a coffee table with flowers and books on the windowsill, there was nothing there. When she asked if nothing happened in her absence and what he was busy with, the boy replied in sign language that he was reading a book. His eyes shone with happiness, but there was also something sad about them. She praised her brother, the only native person, friendly stroking his soft braids. I was glad that such a smart person is growing. It is not for nothing that he put so much effort into it. She thought with pleasure that they had nothing in common, except for the color of their eyes. So in fact, there was nothing. As in every situation, in this case there was also an objective reason. How fortunate that she left him. They are so good and fun together. Her brother's gentle nature and the need to care for this glorious child was her meaning in life. Previously, her income at the market of an ordinary town was so meager that she had to ask the owner of the stall for at least a penny more to buy her younger brother something to eat. She worked very conscientiously, but she received pennies. Orphans are like peas on the road. Those who don't go will be pinched by everyone. No sympathy, nothing personal, purely business. The greedy trader shamelessly profited from the exploitation of child labor and rudely branded her with the unfortunate nickname of a beggar and arrogantly asked why she was messing with an alien child. This angered the girl because it was only half true. They had different mothers. At that time, they did not have enough experience to survive in poor areas. It was especially hard in winter. She had to take as many coins as they gave and sullenly trudge home, slurping unsalted. And who needed them? Who will leave the boy? Everyone has their troubles, their mouths are enough. But one day, Farm heard the news out of the corner of her ear, which gave her hope to earn, just when she was bitterly clutching the coins in her hands, which were not enough for anything. The news that so attracted the attention of the clever teenager was that Lady Solly was collecting folk tales, fairy tales, legends, stories, and other folklore about past times. In the square, two women, who were very poorly dressed, were talking about the fact that one of them was going to cast a spell and hoped to get a bag of coins for it. They laughed, because it was unlikely that the woman knew how to cast a spell. It was this conversation that Farmet heard and decided to show the lady his magic. The child aimed to earn a reward for telling a story about fairies or wizards in the form of a bag of gold coins. It was very risky. If she was caught for witchcraft, she would probably be killed like a witch with pitchforks and burned alive. A child's imagination painted terrible pictures of a medieval massacre. She had no choice. She understood this, swearing to bring something edible to her brother at least for dinner. He looked at her sadly and gestured that everything was fine. The girl, realizing that she could not continue like this, decided to at least go there. And suddenly her lady will not be mistaken for a witch? You have to use this chance. Fate does not make mistakes. Farm imagined the warm sunlight of gold coins. If her magic pleased the young lady, she could count on a reward that would be enough for plenty of food and warm clothes. And for the rest, you can buy and chop firewood. Then next winter, she and her brother will at least stay warm. With these thoughts, she approached the Solly Palace. No one stopped her. The girl found herself on the threshold of a new life. Entering, Farm reported that she had heard that the lady was interested in magic and fairies. She looked shyly and scared in front of herself. In front of her at the table sat the Duke's daughter in a blue and beige dress, holding a piece of paper and a quill in her hands. Kindly and without any arrogance, she invited me to come over. And this is something new. Interesting. The girl aroused lively interest in the lady. Usually older people came. The lady saw the child for the first time in connection with this request. Farmet sat down at the table. Lady Solly smiled amiably to calm the agitated teenager a little and asked as kindly as possible what she was ready to tell about the fairies. The girl hesitated for a moment and then cautiously and honestly admitted that she knew how to use magic. Now there is absolutely nowhere to retreat. Mr. or missing. A frown appeared on her face from the experience. It seems that the lady did not believe her. How much effort she spends every day on this project, and the further, the more disappointment. In science, there are most speculations and lies. The researcher thought with despair. The girls continued to sit opposite each other. Farm rested her hands on her knees tensely, lowering her gaze. The lady patiently endured the pause so as not to shout at the child. Putting maximum seriousness into her words, the lady warned the girls not to joke or lie in order to get money. And she looked at the child with blue eyes, like a Siamese cat. Farm just as seriously swore not to lie and asked to be given at least an opportunity to demonstrate her extraordinary skills. The lady generously allowed me to try it. The young lady generously gave her a chance, saying, "Okay, let her try," not particularly hoping for anything extraordinary. Apparently, he will show some trick, although it's fun. From the very first movements of her unusual guest, Erzetta noticed that the little one's behavior was not very similar to primitive tricks. More precisely, I have never seen anything like it. The main thing is not to be nervous. Everything should be done as usual. A few familiar movements with the tips of the fingers, and the notes from the table ended up in the air of the living room, then fell on the carpet. Confusion and genuine astonishment appeared on Lady Soliot's face. The wind in the room was so strong that even the silver pendant on the neck of the charming mistress of the palace was torn. "Wind? Here?" Erzetta looked in surprise at the closed window curtains. It turned out spectacularly. This has definitely never happened before. She scrambled to her feet. The lady held her unwritten work so that it wouldn't scatter everywhere. When the girl recovered a little and was able to say even a word, she asked if it was the girl who caused the wind with her actions because the windows were closed. The brown-haired, green-eyed young beauty explained with relief that she had caused particles of light in the air that only she could see to move in the air. Then the Duke's daughter asked if the girl possessed other types of magic. In response to an affirmative answer, she asked to show everything she could do. Lady Soliot came across a real miracle. Erzetta watched as the girl produced fire and water from the air and thought that this was real magic and not some cheap tricks of street charlatans. This simple poor girl now looked extraordinary. In her hands and around her obediently revolved the most powerful elements of the universe. And it dawned on Erzette, these microparticles of light, photons, create magic. She remembered reading about these phenomena in books. She immediately started flipping through the thick tomes. Erzetta quickly came across familiar sections on the shelf about physics. As expected, the girl sees not just particles of light, but what nature itself consists of. But the very manipulation of these light particles is called fairy magic. And this confirms the hypothesis that was taken by Erzetta as the basis of her thorough research. Finally, the first fruit of labor. You can't miss this baby. But how to keep her with you in the palace? What to offer? Pharma was bored, waiting for Erzetta's decision. Will he give money? From that day, Pharmette was hired as a servant of Lady Soliot and spent the lion's share of time in the palace next to her mistress. It has become a living object of scientific research. On the 5-year anniversary of the lady's coming-of-age ceremony, all the cream of society, representatives of all noble families, came from everywhere in luxurious carriages. They prepared a luxurious banquet. It's a pity that you have to hide this beauty, lamented Farm, braiding the almost blue braids of the charming Erzetta, who looked at her reflection in the mirror with surprise. She herself would not have paid attention to it. The whole world needs to know that the rumors about the beauty of Lady Erzetta are not exaggerated. The hireling was boiling. The lady laughed. You can't do it without a veil, because there is a possibility of encountering the Marquis of Levanto. The sumptuously dressed lady, whose reddish colors also suited her, winked conspiratorially at the maid and reminded her, warningly raising her finger, that she too should not cross paths with him after their successful conspiracy. Farm managed to get even more tired in her room. The girl's eyes were glued together. Her tired hands hummed pleasantly. She went to rest in her house, her most comfortable place. It was already quite late when she was woken up by a knock on the door. It was her colleague Leah, who was not too lazy to invite her coworker to a banquet for the service. No wonder, she is the soul of the company. The girl, with eyes full of delight, happily told them that the Duke had treated them to what was left after the feast and would be offended if Pharmette did not take an active part in this feast. Despite her denial that she wanted to rest at home, she was persuaded to change clothes and come. Ranjo also wanted this and handed her a package with a festive dress, which was kept for such events. The girl who called her was puzzled by the fact that the boy with a conspiratorial look handed over Lady Erzetta's dress. The servant admitted that it was a present for her birthday. Pharmette agreed for a reason. It was long time to walk her lute. Friends loved listening to these old tunes, and the young talented Bardessa was pleased to entertain them with a game. And now she is standing in front of the forged gates and is thinking about whether to slip through here. She knew that servants were not allowed to pass through this passage. But it takes too much time to go around, and I dared. Trying to run quickly, she accidentally poked her nose in the dark right at the guy she went on a date with at the lady's request. He looked around in confusion. This time he still looked more decent. And then he politely asked her the same thing that had started their acquaintance, whether she was okay. He looked carefully into her green eyes and was so close. His clothes resembled a formal military uniform, fit his figure. When he continued to ask if she was injured, Pharmette rather rudely dismissed who he was. The girl's appearance was also much nicer than in the morning. Elegance, but no formality with veils and gloves. A light hairstyle that did not hide the braids added to the casualness. He apologized for not introducing himself right away and said that he was Ruggieri Levanto, and that they had only seen each other the day before, and he familiarly put his hand to his chest. He studied her kindly with cornflower eyes. When he blurted out that he wanted to repeat the meeting, the lute fell out of her hands from such an unexpected statement. Of course, she recognized him now. What a mess. What does it all mean? Perplexed by this unexpected and unwanted appearance of his, Pharmette consoled herself with the hopes that he had not guessed, had not revealed them with her mistress to a cunning plan. He continued to apologize for blocking their path. She continued to play checkers, as if she was afraid of an unexpected meeting, because there was no one around. It was night outside. She was thrown into the heat, then into the cold. looking into her beautiful eyes, he expressed his joy that he met her, because he did not have time to chat at the ceremony. Apologized for his non-aristocratic behavior the day before. He respectfully raised the lute and handed it to her. What, this young man only has the gift of speech in the evenings? Why can't she use magic to move to the other side of the planet? Leaning so close that Farmet had to turn away and covered herself with the lute as if it were a shield. He continued to explain that he was wrong about the lady, apologized for his persistence, and that he had to say it. Tell me, thought Farm, peering into the shadows. Her green eyes resembled the look of a rabbit cowering before a boa constrictor. It seemed that the Marquis would cry now, Oscar for this DiCaprio. And then he admitted that he could not explain the reasons for his feelings, that he felt sincere sympathy for her. My heart skipped a beat. And when he respectfully showed that his will does not depend on the relations of their families, her hair began to stand on end. She felt as if there had been an explosion. And then he reached out to her with a clear, piercing blue gaze, asked for her hand. Phew, just a kiss to express deep respect for her in this way. She offered her hand. You have to play to the end. He added, for the sake of peace and its prosperity. Sweat was pouring down the girl's cheeks, rolling down her face and back. He bent down and gently placed his warm lips on her cold, fragile palm, piercing the emeralds of her frightened eyes with his blue gaze. The aroma of roses spread. After wishing her a good evening, he left her with a musical instrument in his arms. The garden lanterns competed with the stars in the thick darkness of the night. Crickets played a symphony. What else was that? Why is it him? Farm's thoughts were torn by the strumming of the lute. I couldn't resist these thoughts. A blush played on her cheeks. How dare, oh dear, how dare he tell the lady about his feelings? A cold, intoxicating drink could not cool her feverish thoughts. There is solid mulled wine in the head. That is, he personally feels for her the same as Groom Nino for the weaver Milba. She thought about nonsense watching the frank scene. The couple had not been hiding for a long time. Everyone knew about their romance. Nino looks at her like that. The memory of the Marquise's direct look at her flashed in a flash. Holy, 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 out of my head. With an expression of existential crisis on his concentrated face, a white-faced servant in a ceremonial cassock looked into the night through the lenses of gold-rimmed glasses. The night air is so cool. Behind the portholes of his glasses, his eyes sink in despair. He's coming back tomorrow. It turned out that their meeting with her was delayed. Oh, if only that Viscount had not intervened then. It was then that the fake Rieri narrated the events to the real one. And suddenly someone from behind the door asked if it was possible to enter the Marquis. The master ordered the servant to hide immediately so that they would not be burned. Pushing the servant under the table, the master hurried him with the words that if they were caught, the wedding itself would not take place. They would also be sent to war. He didn't even have time to change his clothes. The Marquis looked at the guest with an icy gaze. Without waiting for permission, someone entered the room. Rieri made a remark that he did not give permission to enter. In front of him stood Viscount Moretti, the secretary of the Duke of Levanto, a black but already graying man with a small beard. He remarked that he did not hear the objection and did not know that Rigieri was here. The Marquis got his bearings quickly and, to lighten the atmosphere, praised him for his brilliant sense of humor. The men burst out laughing. He offered to sit down. What did the Viscount come for? A conversation with the father's faithful dog meant that one had to be extremely careful in one's statements. He said that he was led by curiosity as to how the meeting with Lady Saliot took place. The Marquis assured not to worry, because the rumors about the lady's beauty and intelligence turned out to be true. The Viscount revealed that at the same time, rumors reached him that Rigieri had spilled tea at that meeting. Moretti noticed that the Marquis had changed his clothes very quickly. He had seen him in the corridor just now in different clothes, a beret and a raincoat with a fox on his armband. The feeling is that he is no higher than a clown by Rigieri's standards. It hurts him painfully. The official laughed. Marquis tried to lie that he did not understand anything. The Viscount interrupted and said directly, His Highness considers everyone a blind fool. Although he knew him as a snot, he still cannot understand the course of his thoughts. How could you send a servant instead of yourself to such an important meeting? It's a good thing that the Viscount's person was watching him. Otherwise, what else? The Marquis gave the Viscount a cold look and slammed his fist on the table. He knew from the beginning but didn't stop him. The Viscount contentedly leaned back in his chair, demanding that he marry the lady, because if he refused, the Duke would find out about everything. Moretti was clearly more experienced in court intrigues. To the icy remark, "How could the Viscount dare to threaten him like that?" he replied that no matter how much Ruggieri tried to intimidate him, he would still remain a laughingstock in his eyes. In addition, the Duke's secretary said that only consent was needed. It would be possible to divorce at any moment. Ruggieri tried to understand what the benefit of this venture was. Leaving the premises, the Viscount explained the reason for his appearance in the palace. He had come for a secret meeting with the Duke of Solier. Poor Angelo, who all this time was in the role of a rug with ears, was allowed to go out into the world of God from under the table. He reported that he had completed the assignment and was asking for a favor. Ruggieri, with a crooked grimace as if from a hangover, gave his word to the servant, expecting that he would now tell him a specific amount of gold coins. And the servant asked to make him a free man, because he, as the property of the Levanto family, is forbidden to leave the premises or find another job without permission, and again asked for freedom. Ruggieri was surprised. He did not know that this servant was not a mercenary. "This person is property? Why, and who is he?" Marquis began to say that not everything is so clear-cut, and that it is difficult in general, and he does not make such decisions alone because he is not the boss here. Even though he promised to give anything, he can't do that. The servant, with a display of maximum aggression, grabbed the master by the breasts and protested that he had promised him. What does this madman allow himself? Forgot who he is talking to. However, it's clear. Although Moretti promised that they could divorce later, his father would never give such consent. So all that remains is to get the consent of the Soli family. The Marquis threw the enraged boy so that his glasses flew off. He looked at the ballabol with a sense of self-worth and undisguised disgust and hatred for the master. For this behavior, Angelo faces execution, and you won't have to obey the servant's wishes or worry that the Duke will find out about the lie. But the Marquis is not cruel, so he offers a deal. Lady Soli must be seduced to persuade to abandon the engagement, even discrediting her. In short, everything is possible to break this marriage. In case of failure, nothing will happen to him. And in case of success, his freedom is guaranteed. The servant insisted on this decision. He stared into the night with the thought that such a delusion would occur to such an intelligent man. The servant got down to business. At the meeting, he noted that the lady looks better without a veil than he expected. He didn't know what it would lead to, but for the sake of his freedom, he was ready for anything. Milena, Duchess of Soliet, sipping her tea without sadness, informed Erzeta of the letter of approval regarding her recent meeting with the Marquis. "You will have to marry him." The mother did not allow her daughter to object to such an insult to her freedom and choice of a life partner, making a stop gesture with her palm. The Duchess explained that her father was planning a public works project to connect Lake Ithaca to the ocean. If it succeeds, it will be possible to trade with the southern continent. It is necessary to achieve investment from allied nations for this design. However, the canal will pass through a river located in the Duchy of Levanto. It turns out that 2 neighboring countries must be in close relations for this, Erzeta understood. The Duchess, with motherly pain in her voice and eyes, explained that the main problem was Erzeta's younger sister, Wiese. The younger lady will meet a partner to her heart's content and will have simple feminine happiness. But the eldest daughter must marry first. Such is the will of the Duke. If it is so disgusting to Erzeti, it is enough to wait until the end of the project. The mother vowed to get her daughter divorced after that, and got consent. At the end of spring, the engagement documents were exchanged. Erzeta received a wedding ring and was certain that she would not see the Marquis again until the divorce due to the political reason of the marriage. The lady explained to the maid that if the Marquis had feelings, the engagement would not be only in writing. He did not care. Farmet remembered not telling about the chance encounter until the next day. The maid recreated the image of the young man in the garden when he confessed his feelings to her and kissed the pen. Since they will not see each other until the divorce, that's great. Angelo found out, and Ruggieri also did not know about the construction project from the beginning, so he hurried to correct the situation. Farm was glad that she no longer needed to see him and suffer the Spanish shame, and that Erzeta will not have to endure this marriage for long. Erzeta interrupted the joyful thoughts of her faithful friend. reminding them that it was long time for them to go to Mass. How well everything turned out. The priest greeted the girls with a greeting that he was glad to see that everything is fine with the wise and good lady. She requested an audience, but he declined due to a scheduled day. Erzetta expressed surprise, and the priest explained that a scientist with whom he had only corresponded until now would come. The lady was terribly intrigued. Even her teacher praised him. Now she dreamed of meeting and talking with this scientist. Seeing the scientist from afar, the girl asked the maid to invite him immediately. Farmit ran to bring him from the gate. The figure of the man who was talking to the guards at the gate seemed familiar to the maid. "Is this Riccieri Levanto? Unbelievable! Why is he here?" Farmit ran to the young lady in the dark and told her that it was a marquis who pretended to be a church scholar. Surprised, Erzetta was also interested in what business he was here for. She was already going to pour tea. Farmit offered to drive him out. The lady did not see him. And suddenly a visitor entered the room with the words that Teacher Beto should have warned about his arrival. The bewildered maid worried above all at this moment that now their conspiracy would be revealed through a meeting with the real Erzetta, and all plans would be over. This universal liar apologized to Farmit. The door was not closed. He allowed himself such impudence because the door was not closed. The real Erzetta hid behind the chair and couldn't believe that it was Riccieri. The maid coldly remarked that he had no right to go into her room, despite the fact that he heard no answer. And suddenly the guy introduced himself as Elio, an ardent fan of old books, and therefore it was a special honor for him to meet with the most serious scientist of our time. What other game is this? The girl's indignation knew no bounds. She said that there is no need to fool her because she knows him by another name. He admitted that he was glad that she had not forgotten him. The boy was not so luxuriously dressed, but not like a commoner either. The glasses were the same as the unkempt haircut. She, with such an expression as if she had been caught in a lie, demanded to admit that he was neither a scientist nor Elio, and she warned that entering the castle under someone else's name is a crime. She threatened to call the guards. He thoughtfully asked, "Is the desire to see his wife a crime?" He demonstratively rubbed his chin with the hand that had a wedding ring on it, the same as Erzetta's. At the same time, the lady could not understand what was happening there at all. She clutched the wedding ring, sweat dripping down her face. When the young man remarked that his bride was probably not interested in marriage because she was not wearing a ring, Farmit lied that she had taken it off out of fear of losing it. The best defense is offense, and the maid pounced with trespassing accusations. Does he have any relation to the teacher? No, the teacher is not aware. Being able to hear her voice and her well-being makes him happy despite his reluctance to see it, the boy muttered, putting his hand to his heart. Farm recognized the ring. She defended herself with the argument that the meeting was not enough to make an impression and be glad to see him. There were 2 meetings, even 2, nothing to come by surprise. At his offer to explain how his mind was overcome by feelings, she snapped that she didn't need to recite only poems here. You should not be afraid of a break, because they are united by a goal. That is, then, will she leave him? He said it so sadly. How did he find out about it? She turned away, hiding her emotions, and said to go away, because she was waiting for the scientist today. He offered to talk to him, and he smiled slyly at her surprise, explaining that he wouldn't have been able to fool the priest if he wasn't smart enough. She pretended to be impressed, but was forced to refuse. Finally, he showed what he really is, a young genius who lives only for himself. Well, he agreed to end the conversation on one condition, that he will be allowed to stay in this beautiful country a little longer, and asked for her hand in marriage. She looked at him angrily, thinking to herself how tired she was of these ridiculous rules of etiquette, and how she wanted him to quit as soon as possible. And she elegantly gave him her hand. Why is she so red? This is just an ordinary tribute to etiquette. The way she looks, those intelligent, strong-willed eyes, forever in her memory. The look of a person who knows what she wants. Well, see you later. Farmit's mouth fell open, looking at him. The hostess ran up. Is she okay? Yes, of course. That's fine. Riccieri is such a charmer. The maid laughed to hide her excitement. Erzetta apologized that it was her fault. But when did they meet for the second time? The maid confessed everything, and the lady concluded that he was head over heels in love with Farm. For the maid, it was like salt in the wound. What about appearance? A boy is a boy. Yeah, it looks like he's just not the right type for a maid, laughed the Duke's daughter. Erzetta, with a friendly face, assured that she would protect against possible problems and worries due to the connection with the heir to the throne. Farm is like a sister to her, and she won't let some Rigieri take her away. This is only temporary. There is hope. A voice rang out in the night. He promised to give her everything she wanted, on the condition that she would never fall in love. Only the mind would overpower the feelings. The magic would disappear. From this Farm woke up. A lace ribbon of moonlight ran diagonally across her face. What a familiar voice. She looked up at the moon and clearly heard the same warning again. It ended with the words, "Because love will replace magic." Farm remembered the hungry times when she did not have magic. Herds of rats ran through the attic, which served as her home, and the cold penetrated to the bones at night and the heat during the day. I was never full. Ranjo was just a baby then. It is still unbelievable how they did not die of hunger in that period. She could not remember where she heard that voice, but in no case should she lose her power. Therefore, she does not allow herself to fall in love. Never. Farm decided to share her concerns about her voice with the only person she trusted and fully depended on. Erzetta believed her friend's story. She looked benevolently at the maid, asking what exactly that inhuman voice was. In her opinion, it was the voice of the fairies. Western folk tales often told about the blessings and curses of fairies. They are depicted as fickle and capricious creatures. The reason for this gift did not exist, so it is not surprising that Farmit cannot understand the origin of the voice. Will it be possible to unravel the secret of magic if you simply wait out the whims of these enchanting creatures? Of course, the girl proves the existence of the supernatural because any phenomenon in nature has objective reasons. It is not a mysterious power. If you analyze the records before the era of the church, you can trace a way of life and orders that cannot be reproduced even with current technologies. This indicates the widespread use of magic. Unfortunately, Farmit stopped understanding what her friend was trying to explain to her with her phrases, lavishly decorated with terms. Although Erzetta took as an example those elements that Farme could control: water, fire, and air. Adriano is the head of the Faculty of Astronomy at the National Academy of Sali Jeremy, thanked Erzetti for the borrowed book, and expressed his doubt that the gist of it would be understood by less than intelligent students. Farmet was surprised by this wording. The friend explained that the students of the religious faculty consider the research of astronomers to be blasphemy, and because of this they are at odds. Adriano explained that the tower was so quiet because everyone gathered in the conference room and received some kind of treasure. Judging by the expression on the lady's face, they are going there, concluded the maid. There was a fight in the hall, like in a tavern. The general designer of the canal construction was handing fists to a scientist, who claimed that the engineer did not know the basics of physics. The lady ordered that such matters be stopped immediately in the academy under the threat of reporting to her father. The men came to their senses, but under the eye of the religious scholar, there was already indisputable proof of the beatings. The lady wondered if the men called this drawing of construction equipment a treasure. Regarding the drawing, opinions were divided. The drawing belonged to Elio Rodinati, and they described exactly that Elio. On the way back, Erzetta admired the work of Elio, or the Marquis of Levanto, and claimed that he was a genius and that his equipment development would definitely help in the construction of the canal. She shared with Farm her intentions to introduce such an extraordinary talent to her father. But the reason for his recent visit under an assumed name was troubling. If you ask the father to find out his true desires, then his true intentions will come out. The Duke asked the blonde man if he sometimes needed a position, support for research or drawings. The guy admitted that he is not competent in public affairs and was surprised at the proposals for such a trivial, primitive idea. Herzog was surprised by this. Usually talents seek recognition. Did he offer something worthless? Why does the guy refuse? Elio, bowing his fair head, modestly answered that he was just a guest of the priest Betos. He heard about the canal project by accident. He proposed the idea just out of the blue. What does this lung want? It turns out that everything Elio wants is related to his drawing skills, which he admired earlier, namely to paint a portrait of Lady Soliot. After a moment of surprise, the Duke promised to consider this request and give an answer shortly. Erzetta discussed the event with the maid. It was not possible to simply appropriate the drawing, but as a result, she barely calmed down her father. There is another reason why Elio is needed. The construction of the channel is dirty work, and therefore, slave labor. Hundreds of people died during the construction of the Elupsa Canal. You can avoid putting people in danger by using a car. They will fulfill his wishes. They will receive a detailed drawing of the model. The lady's thoughts were interrupted by a maid who offered to draw her. Nothing, if the girls are exposed, the maid persuaded. After all, the deed of the Marquis is not better. He fooled the whole country. The Duke's daughter hugged her friend. She is so glad that fate brought them together. This tenderness was a little even unexpected for Farmit, but mutual. The maid stroked the girl's braids. The lady expressed her opinion that this guy is not such an unpleasant type, and it is a pity that her friend has to put up with him because she does not like him at all. If he is not handsome, then all the others in general are nothing against his background. Farm remembered how the emotions on the young man's face changed. The hostess is right. Why does not want to admit the obvious? Her loyalty to her mistress will be in doubt if she refuses. And what will be lost from meeting him? Consent. Farmet's bright tresses were carefully combed with an expensive ivory comb, contrasting delicate colors, perfumed with the hostess's favorite scent, and certainly precious earrings. The real princess looked at the maid from the mirror. Her peach-hued dress with a plunging neckline and high waist looked amazing on her. The lady praised and let the hairdressers go. Farmet continued to stare at herself in shock, her mouth agape. A real fairy complimented Erzette. The Marquis would fall in love with Pharma even more. The maid asked not to develop this topic. The lady offered to leave at least one maid nearby, but Farmet rejected this idea, because then she would not be able to pretend to be the Duke's daughter. A friend promised to be in the next room. The guest came with an easel and thanked and agreed. Elio introduced himself. Rodinati assured him according to etiquette that this meeting was a great honor for him. Farmet noted that he is not afraid to introduce himself by this name. He replied that no one forbids its use depending on the circumstances. The girl replied that those who have no merit say so. Maybe it's time to live up to your name? Ah, sorry, will that suit her? And got down on one knee. He is ready to leave not everything. She noted that she was flattered by the behavior of this handsome man. She turned her face away and ordered him to stand up, because it is impossible to draw like that, and she wants it to be over as soon as possible, so don't delay. He can't waste the lady's time and will start right away. Oh no, her neck is so itchy. What to do? Oh, turned away. Seized the moment. Oops, I noticed, that's a shame. His laugh gave away that he saw it. What made him laugh so much? He apologizes for saying so late. There is no need to sit completely still at the beginning of work. I didn't say because I wanted to admire the charming lady. You can still read or upgrade. Great. You can relax your back for now. And she plunged into reading. The book turned out to be historical. He is so handsome. All right? Did you succeed in attracting interest? Of course, this will be her portrait. It's a pity that his skills are not enough to convey all her charm. And still he made her sit here? It was just an excuse to meet. From this news, Farm stared at the floor with a bored look. Here's to you. And he made the drawing for the same? Really? It wasn't difficult at all. Why was he so persistently looking for a meeting? Just wants to get to know her better. How else can you build a good relationship? Can I ask him now? What books does she read? What kind of tea do you usually drink? What's not to like about food? What flowers do you like? Farmet sighed with relief. It's good that he didn't ask something strange. She prefers scientific literature. He drinks mint tea. Her favorite food is marinated duck meat, but he especially likes sweets. Among the flowers, she especially likes anemones and May roses. He is glad that now he knows a little more about her. And thanks for the frankness. But is it possible to learn about Lady Erzeta from such questions? Almost all noble ladies have similar tastes. Designed the equipment but asks such primitive questions? Maybe this project is stupid, but it will save many lives. She is only interested in engineering. She doesn't believe Righieri's words. Okay, that's all for today. And kiss the pen. Maybe he's handsome, but he's like a spoiled apricot. Great on the outside, but rotten on the inside. Pharma plucked the flowers from her hair, which were smeared, and glared at the boy. To the praise of the mistress, the maid, taking off her jewelry as she went, said that she was so glad that her mistress did not have to see this scoundrel. A few days later, Erzeta informed Farmi, who was combing her braids, that the Marquis of Levanto had visited the academy and explained the principle of operation of the steam engine. Knowing the principle of action, we will be able to complete further. And if he is sincere in his words, so Farm is deceiving him, right? The girl lowered her eyes dejectedly, remembering how rudely she had said that she did not believe him. As soon as the maid finished Erzeta's hair, the girls hurried to dinner, because they were already late. The Duke couple and their 3 children were sitting at the table. The servant was standing nearby. The family discussed the playing of the violinist and flautist. The Duchess assumed that a bard was missing. Weeze's younger daughter advised her parents to get acquainted with Farm's vocal work, as she is an ardent admirer of her singing. The Duchess was pleasantly surprised, but remembered that the girl's father was a musician, so she learned music from an early age. The maid came to her senses. He was just an ordinary street musician, performing at banquets and in the market. The young master of the Salipontano family received this news with delight and wanted to listen. Weeze asked for a song about love, about Roland the Wanderer. Father supported this initiative. "Oh, Roland Shepherdess, how did you steal my heart? Your eyes shine with starlight, your smile makes you happy. Oh, Lord of my heart, stop and burn me with your gaze. Neither rubies nor silver nor crystals will overshadow you for me. You can take my mortal body and lay it at your feet. Love, I can only lose him here. She is really a very sincere, good girl, and the lady helped, and such a wonderful, clear voice." The maid was overwhelmed by these praises. The lord noted, raising a glass of red drink, "Erzeta knows how to choose good company. He trusts the girl with his daughter, so she can count on his support. Now she will have a successful life. A noble knight who fell in love with a simple shepherdess. Why is she so concerned about this plot? It just reminds me of the words. Don't think about him." He could not hear her, looking at him for so long. "Have you sinned again?" "Oh no, just thought. I am glad that they are not angry with him. Is it because of cooperation with the academy? But that's not the point. Surely not angry. Did she look like that because she thinks he's cute?" She jumped out of her chair. "But no. I just wonder what his head is full of. Why is he trying so hard? And why does he look so mysteriously and hide his canvas? His outfit is so harmoniously chosen." She came up with a demand to immediately show what he was trying to hide there. "Yeah, I caught it. Tore out the canvas. Why did he want to hide so much?" Zvinko laughed out loud, throwing her head back. The image did not meet expectations at all. She was laughing to the point of tears, and he made excuses that he was trying. "What did you try? Over your face? Let him stop growing a beard. It doesn't suit him." There were gray traces of paint on the young man's face. That's because she abruptly took the canvas away. Tried so hard. Does she really look like that? Couldn't stop laughing. He made a lame excuse that he warned that he lacked the skills or to capture her beauty. She looked sly. It seems that the reason is completely different. And why did it even occur to him to paint a portrait of her? Because it was the only chance to stay close to her. Doesn't she want to finish the portrait? The boy looked with hope, wiping the lenses of his glasses with a batiste handkerchief. He gave the drawing. "Why is he telling all this? Are you afraid that you will be punished for lying?" Her fingers touched his puzzled face. She came so close. It is easy to see even without glasses. These precious earrings and yellow flowers matched her emerald eyes so well. He may not be an artist, but his help with the channel is invaluable. Therefore, this communication will definitely benefit them. So let him continue to improve his skills. She got into the role wonderfully. Angelo said that the idea to paint a portrait arose when he saw her in the garden with a lute. This image stuck in his soul. With these words, he kissed her in the heart. Maybe he was in a hurry because of his feelings, but he is very happy that he was able to cheer her up. It seems that today he is no longer able to continue painting the portrait. Can he leave the hall first? She graciously sent him to rest. He said goodbye until the next meeting, asking to take care of himself, and as he left, he fixed his gaze on her. "It's not so bad," the beauty thought. A ray of sunlight played with her earrings and caressed her reddened cheek from excitement. There is an old fairy tale about the shepherd Asta and the water fairy Rebelli. Their meeting was foreseen by fate. People often compare them to her parents. Father played the lute while traveling the world. His mother danced, accompanying him on the tambourine. It seemed that the three of them would travel forever. But Mom died of an illness. Now there was no more music in their house. She and Dad were on the poverty line. The lute became a means of earning, and traveling became impossible plans. The laughter also died down in their house. The days without food seemed endless. Dad started coming back less and less, and then he stopped coming. It was scary. I had to give up. The girl went to work. Her little hands became calloused. She decided to abandon the past and live on, and the father returned, and also with a newborn child. The girl did not doubt her father's sincerity, that he loved her mother. Apparently, he was just as genuine in his new relationship. But what joy from feelings, he could not take care of any of his children. This man is no different from Dad. He gives her time while she pretends to be Erzeta. As soon as Righieri learns the truth about who she is, she will be abandoned again. Farm sat and watched her brother read enthusiastically, her only kindred soul in this world. She raised him. She caressed his soft hair. Someday everything will fall into place. In the evening, the artist, from whom only a particle of ETS was about him, considered further plans. Bad business. Maybe he shouldn't have grabbed everything in a row. Why is she not such an easy prey as it seemed from the first meeting? Another person appeared. Clever and always one step ahead. Is it possible to lose vigilance even for a moment? Angelo tried to confuse her, and he sat down in the puddle again. I even had to play the role of a court jester. It's as if the Rams go wall to wall with her. Stop what? What does he think of her? The guy caught himself not because of a bad premonition. Did he come here? Leaving the books open, he threw on a blue cloak with a prayer that no one would do anything stupid, and ran out. The Marquis promised money for a room in a cheap hostel the next day. Of course, no one was going to release it without a subscription. They even called him a beggar who escaped from a bankrupt theater. Angelo found his master thrown out on the cobblestones. I asked him to be called Elio here and helped him stand up. Marquis explained that he had been robbed, and that he came here to control the servant. Angelo's story about the portrait surprised Ruggieri. He was already sitting washed and in a clean peignoir. The guy said that she does not open up to people easily. She also does not want to get married. Balamut added, a typical lady is unlikely to go against the family. He hardly knew such people, said the Marquis. Crazy, and why is he so resistant? Sooner or later it will be necessary for the sake of the title of Duke. The Marquis glared at the servant. For a long time, he could not choose what words to send Angelo. In the end, he said that he could go, but he had to try harder. As you say, the guy went back to the archive. On the way, someone in a monk's outfit with a hood pulled over his face called out to him, "Where is the report? Does he really do it?" Did the spirit of freedom play after meeting the woman? Nervously removing his glasses, Elio explained that it was not so easy to please her. This incognito is not the only one who is in a hurry. We have to wait a little longer. No nonsense. A contract is more expensive than money. The man peered meaningfully from under the hood. He remembers. Enough. Let him also go to work. You have to win her heart. Preparations for the Festival de la Louche. The street is decorated with flowers, fruits, fabrics, lanterns. The women of the square make artificial flowers. Pharma is so good at decorating, but the lady is not. But the lady is better at everything else. The maid will be happy to help. Isn't it time to frolic? No, she can start later today. Now you cannot try, thought the girl arranging flowers. How wonderful to put your feelings in order. There is no need to dress up. It is better to wear something comfortable. Soon this vaudeville finita la commedia. Oh, the artist is here. What is it about him? He greets and gives a package. This is the viola. According to legend, it was invented in Valerie. Thanks to the bow, you can play without touching the strings with your hand. Blooming Farmette bends over the box, gently touches the strings. The girl is delighted and very interested. Ruggieri laughs and says that now the instrument belongs to her. As soon as he saw the viola in the market, he immediately remembered the lady. He did not remember how he bought it. But since he himself does not play at all, it is hers. If she refuses, she has no reason to accept this gift. In this case, the tool will rot in a dusty warehouse, along with the heart of the person who dreamed about this thing and the sweat of the master. If this is manipulation, then she has nothing in return for him. But he just wanted to see her library. Okay, she'll think about it. Let the tool lie with her so as not to be worn. In this case, you can continue working on the portrait. Don't mind doing it outside. Natural light promotes the best color rendering. Sounds like an artist. Knowledge of theory does not add skills, added the false marquis slyly. Wow, he is not modest. Denial of facts is not modesty, but hypocrisy. She winked at him. Sure, the guy is right. Angelo looked with a long, intelligent look of light eyes, and praised her garden to bring the subject. Better than the garden of Levanto Castle? She wanted to prick him, touching his pride. He immodestly blurted out that he would not say more. But the content is important, not beauty. Where to sit here? This time he will let her take the canvas. Suddenly, she herself turned white, like a background for a landscape. Leah was in the garden, plucking rose petals for the chef. Leah turned at the strange sound. Pussy? And she went to the kitchen. Farm suddenly heard, will she allow herself to get off him? Out of fear, she sat on Angelo's arms. Is he angry? Napela said that she did not want to meet her sister because of their quarrel yesterday. He didn't listen. He has to go to a meeting right away, about which he almost forgot. His neck turned red. Was he really that angry? It is hard to believe that Righieri left the canvas. She touched the viola. A welcome gift. He won't know how amused she is. Why was she rude? Who pulled her by the tongue? I will have to show him the library as an apology. You have to ask permission from Lady Erzetta. Meanwhile, Erzetta was on her way to the bookish Rontaro. She was very worried about the new arrivals. The merchant was happy that the books brought yesterday will cheer her up. They are upstairs. And suddenly, she ran into Righiera. She spoke. Lord, Mother of God, he thought. She apologized. The Marquis rudely told her that if she needed anything, he was engaged. No one recognized anyone. The lady pointed a finger at his chest. Is it his? Glancing and seeing a huge spider, the Marquise jumped in hysterics. She slapped the spider with a book and wiped it off. It's a pity, I thought it was tame. The young lady took it off. Not local, she understood from the accent, just a comical situation. She did not scoff, held out her hand to help him stand up. Why does she try to justify his weakness? Isn't it shameful for a man to be afraid of insects? They are really not all pleasant, but he is not afraid to read. The girl joked. When reading, he shows incredible courage, praised the girl. Better to be smart but timid than strong but dumb. Righieri bit his lip and stared. And since they ruined this book, let him buy it back. And she laughingly sealed the book to his seductive torso, stretched out from the heat. Mostly her fault, but for his sake. Angelo opened the Marquise's door and inquired how he was feeling, for his face was red and his hands were trembling. Everything is fine, and asked to wash the handkerchief. Righieri could not fall asleep for a long time due to overexcitement, holding a book in his arms. Who is this? It is impossible to describe what a beauty. The maid reprimanded her mistress for being too bold. She shouldn't have gone to the bookstore herself. But she is not a child. The lady laughed. What? Funny? No, I remembered a funny incident. Is this a gift from the Marquis? Yes. Give it to the court musician? In no case. You can take it away from her. For the game, then, somehow. Necessarily. Farmit looked lovingly at the viola. The Marquis was able to find a gift to suit the taste of a girl he had only seen a couple of times. He must be serious. Erzetta allowed him to show the library. In the library, the girl thought that the guy had completely forgotten about her. He immersed himself in books. He behaves so neatly with the book. It can be seen that he appreciates it. The Marquis treats valuables with trepidation, but what about people? She warned to be very careful with the manuscript, which is over 300 years old. Well, it is an honor for him to flip through it. Did the lady begin to trust him once she agreed to discuss what she previously only talked about with close people? He felt funny, and she was confused. Farmit only commented that he probably wouldn't even need this book. To his surprise, she attacked him for criticizing one article, even though it was not worth paying attention to fiction. The article was about fairies and magic. He frowned. She made the usual manipulations with her hands. The leaves in the library were spinning. She asked if the Marquis still did not believe in magic at all. He does not believe. Why is the wind so strong? She laughs. A few movements, and the wind blows on him. Suddenly her eyes watered. Something got into the eye. The guy did not let her rub her eyes, removed her hand and blew on her eye. I remembered. My mother used to do the same so that her eyes wouldn't hurt. And in response, she straightened his forelock. The guy was indignant. But what's wrong? Why does he not want to get close but casually touches without gloves, falls into an embrace? Is she like that with everyone? Is he a hanger for her? The girl blushed like cancer, but he is, as it were, more beautiful than a coat hanger. What did she freeze? Angelo grabbed his glasses and with the words, "It was a pleasure to spend time with her and it was time for him," jumped out of the library. The days before the festival passed quickly. Miss Erzetta gave everyone time off to participate in the celebrations. "Isn't this lace a masterpiece?" asked Leah at the farm. "Joel is performing there." However, it was too far away to assess the truth of this statement. Yeah, thanks to Mr. Beautiful Toothpick, because that's what he appeared to be from that distance. You can escape from Leah. She looked at her bag conspiratorially. I should have run. Chewing on a delicacy, the boy tugged at his mother. "Someone is dancing there. The lights are flying." Indeed, from the dancing farm, lights were floating in all directions. "It looks like magic," Suddenly, everyone shouted, "Why did she freeze? Yay, a fundraising hat! Nothing happens for nothing now." Coins were clinking, flames of lanterns, torches, lamps. It absorbs heat, moves it. The people rustled, wondering what had exploded in her hand. A mess, an overabundance, will be corrected by the wind, and disappeared. Is the dancer possessed by a spirit? As expected, counting the coins proved the generosity of the capital's residents. Suddenly, a hand fell on her shoulder. She got scared, turned around and saw him. The young man only asked to answer the question. She asked if he was Ruggieri Levanto, and then the guy recognized her. Why did she... And the girl asked him the same thing. She demanded an explanation of the touch. He just found out. If he had known that it was a lady, he would not have caught up. Have you seen her magical dance? What to say? Magic is just a heresy for him. She took care of his blindness at night. Hadn't he once met a dancer who performed miracles with fire? Oops, magic doesn't exist, is not it? It doesn't matter what he saw. There is no reason to accuse her of witchcraft. Yes, it's really hard for him to navigate in the dark. That is why the Marquis saw nothing that night. They have nothing more to talk about. But what is he about? He said it was time for him. She should be careful. Dangerous at night, uninteresting during the day. You have to run away from him from this backyard. And suddenly, he asked to accompany him to the festival. Is that impolite? Yes, no questions asked. At the festival, De La Louche celebrate the harvest season and good weather. People look at the jugglers and see their love. But people like her are only allowed to walk with honor. Tired of these formal processions, dinners, why does she only have to watch from the balcony at the festival? Lady Erzetta was sad. Farm will understand her. The main thing is not to get caught, and jumped out at work. This is not the first time that Erzetta runs away in the guise of a maid. Everywhere is so bright and noisy, like a world from books. At least for a moment to immerse yourself in this atmosphere. She was offered a mug and a snack, but she has no money. They give her for nothing. She looks like his daughter. Eating outside is not a feast for her. You can laugh when you want, run, scream. And this girl is beautiful. She probably serves in the palace. The men are discussing the girl when they are drunk. Suddenly, they obsessively offered her their company. How did it come to this? How dare she refuse him? He is kind to her only because of her pretty face. Suddenly, I heard a rescue call. He barely found it. He asked the lady not to leave him. Who else is this? The blue-eyed boy introduced himself as her husband. Beneath the brim of his hat, his sons had a confident look. He immediately took her away from the attackers and asked what they had to do with her. No! They just wanted to ask her for directions. That's glorious. A guard is standing just around the corner. Call? Blue-eyed saw a familiar face and could not pass through. Exactly, this is the one with the spider. He must have come specifically for the festival. And how did she guess? Because of the accent. Ruggieri, in turn, guessed by the language that this young lady was no simpleton. But why such an outfit? It is not necessary for him to know the reason. Is the girl alone? It's too dangerous to go back alone. But how will she explain to her strict father who it is? But they already know each other. If he tries to pass himself off as her husband again, it will be problematic. The Marquis said that he wanted to save her, but he was not attracted to her father. There was no subtext. How funny she is. She thanked for the help and assured that she would arrive without incident and wished her a pleasant time in Seoul. In return, he asked to know her name. Shouldn't he be called the first? And suddenly, Erzetta set a condition. There will be an agreement between them